Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're doing a deep dive into, well, the curious case of Tesla stock. The big question we're tackling for you, our listeners, really, is now a good time to buy Tesla shares,
Yeah.
especially, with the price under $350. We've looked through the sources you sent, and what jumps out right away is that Tesla's stock, it's taken a bit of a tumble, down about 20% since the start of the year, right? From around $428 down to $325 as of June 16.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating, or maybe concerning, depending on your view, is how much of that recent dip seems tied to Elon Musk. Specifically, his previous focus on politics, his time running the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, right, for the Trump administration. The sources we looked at suggest this really did divert his attention away from Tesla's day-to-day. And that created this perception of distraction, which seemed to make the stock falter. Now, he's reportedly back, focused on Tesla again, but the feeling is, as the sources put it, the damage done recently will take time to repair, mostly about investor confidence, I think, and just needing that clear focus back.
Right. But, okay, despite those immediate challenges, it's actually pretty interesting where Tesla is putting its energy. They're making these, massive bets on future markets, really futuristic stuff. So first up, robotics. Musk is pretty vocal, seems he really believes Tesla's future is there. And you see analysts like Morgan Stanley, they're projecting this humanoid robot market could be worth a staggering $5 trillion by 2035.
Yeah, $5 trillion. Huge number.
Exactly. And Tesla's aiming for 10% of that market. They've got these goals, 5,000 Optimus bots this year, 50,000 next year. Now, the sources do say, okay, they might miss deadlines. We've seen that before. But it's the steady movement towards that future that seems key here.
And, connecting that to the bigger picture, they're also deep into autonomous vehicles, AVs. Another market projected to be massive, maybe $2 trillion by 2030.
Wow.
Their strategy is kind of twofold, right?
Yeah.
Building their own AVs, but also letting current Tesla owners rent out their cars for services like robotaxi. Though we know that Austin launch got delayed.
Yeah.
Sure, they might be behind competitors. Alphabet's Waymo comes to mind. But the market's still so new, still nascent, as one source said. So it's not a ridiculous thought they could carve out a real niche, leverage that existing fleet.
And yeah, we shouldn't forget their history here. I mean, Tesla has this track record, right? Succeeding with EVs when pretty much everyone was saying, no way, it'll fail.
Absolutely.
That past success definitely adds some weight to the argument for these new big bets.
That's the bull case, the upside, big future bets. But like any investment, there's always the other side, the risks. So what are the worries right now? What's dragging on the stock? Well, firstly, the core business, selling cars. It's genuinely struggling a bit. Automotive revenue dropped, was it 20% in Q1 2025?
Yeah, 20%.
And net income plunged, really plunged, 71%, down to just 12 per share. That hits the core story. Profitability, growth, it's a concern.
And that ties into the second big worry, brand damage. Musk's time at DOGE, his political alignment. The sources say he aligned with ideas that didn't sit well with existing and potential customers. And that seems to have genuinely hurt the brand's appeal for some people. It's just really hard to guess how long it takes to, polish that back up, rebuild trust.
And it's not just Tesla's issues either. The whole EV market, particularly in the U.S., seems to be stalling.
Yeah, I've seen that.
It's a mix of things, right? Worries about tariffs, prices going up, and still the lack of enough charging stations. That's a big one. Plus, you've got more competition from overseas, like China's BYD. They're really starting to chip away at Tesla's dominance, as the source material puts it, in several key markets, too, not just China.
And the final point, maybe the biggest gamble, these huge bets on robots and AVs. The sources are pretty clear. These are largely unproven markets. The potential is huge, yes. Those trillion-dollar numbers sound great, but there's no guarantee. Even if Tesla builds amazing tech, will people actually want or need humanoid bots or self-driving cars on a massive scale? That
demand question is, it's a huge unknown.
So, okay, putting it all together, what does this mean for you, the listener, thinking about investing? The clear message, the verdict from the sources we read seems to be, take a wait-and-see approach.
Yeah, pretty much. It's probably best to hold off on buying the stock right now. What do you need to see for more comfort? Well, the brand needs some polishing, that's clear. Musk needs to consistently prove he can focus on his company rather than politics. Show that focus. And then the fundamentals. Car sales need to bounce back. Show some recovery. And critically, net income needs to start growing again, sustainably.
Those are the finds to watch.
Exactly. Those are the key metrics for a potential turnaround story.
Okay, so For you, our listener, maybe here's something provocative to chew on as we wrap up. Think about how deeply a company's future, especially one like Tesla, betting so heavily on these speculative, almost sci-fi markets, how much it's tied not just to the cool products, but also to the leaders' perceived focus, even their outside political activities. What does that connection tell us about the real risks and maybe the rewards of investing in these kinds of visionary companies where so much seems to ride on one very dynamic individual? Something to think about. Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep today into the recent news around Tesla's stock. It took a bit of a slump, and specifically, we're looking at production pauses for the Cybertruck and the Model Y. Our mission here is to really understand the context behind that 4% stock dip.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is, while production pauses aren't totally unusual for car makers, they happen. This specific pause, well, it's actually the third time Tesla's halted things in just the past 12 months.
The third time? Really?
Yes, so it's not just like standard procedure. It suggests something more might be going on, maybe with consistency or planning. Could even signal some deeper operational headwinds.
Okay, so not just a one-off then. What's the story with this latest pause, and how does it, connect back to the others?
Right, so the most recent one is at the Austin plant. It's for the week of June 30th. Officially, workers were told it's for maintenance, aiming for future optimization.
Maintenance, okay. And what about the employees during this time?
They gave them options. Take paid time off. Or they could come in for some voluntary training and cleaning duties.
Voluntary training. Okay. And the previous ones? You said there were two others.
Exactly. This follows that pattern. We saw a pause back in May. That one was for company morale seminars, apparently.
Morale seminars.
And then another one back in December, that was blamed on a battery shortage. So seeing these happen again and again for different reasons, it does suggest a broader pattern of disruption.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot of starts and stops. How does all this chopping and changing play into Tesla's overall financial picture? Because I remember their first quarter numbers, they weren't exactly glowing, were they?
You're absolutely right. Glowing is definitely not the word. Frankly, their Q1 numbers were, well, pretty dismal.
Dismal.
Yeah. Even though they launched a new Model Y in January, which you'd think would give them a boost, sales actually hit their lowest point since 2022.
Wow.
It was a 13% drop compared to the year before. So yeah, significant headwinds despite the new model.
13%. Okay. And weren't there other factors impacting sales too? I feel like I read something about external pressures.
Yes, that's part of the narrative too.
Yeah.
It's worth noting, some reports attribute part of the sales dip to consumer boycotts. This seems connected to Elon Musk's public profile and his reported involvement with President Donald Trump's administration.
Right, that political angle.
It got to the point where some shareholders actually wrote an open letter, pretty direct, demanding Musk, quote, do his actual job.
Wow. Okay. So production pauses, sales struggles, shareholder pressure. And then speaking of operational hiccups, what about that huge Cybertruck recall? That was back in March, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah, that was definitely another blow. A significant one.
What was the issue there again?
They had to recall Cybertrucks because the exterior trim panels, they could apparently just come loose, easily dislodged, which, is a potential traffic hazard.
Not ideal for a brand new flagship vehicle.
Not ideal at all. It just adds to this picture of ongoing challenges, especially with quality control maybe, on top of everything else.
Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture then, despite all these, let's call them immediate challenges, Tesla's still pushing ahead with some really ambitious stuff, like the Model Y robotaxis.
Precisely. That's the other side of the coin. Even with all this turbulence, they're gearing up to launch Model Y robotaxis in Austin. The date set is June 22nd.
And that's been a long time coming, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Almost a decade. Musk has been promising that a launch like this was just around the corner. Imminent. So if this actually works, it's not just a new product. It could fundamentally change their business model, shifting more towards like a recurring revenue service.
A big long-term play.
Exactly. It's what a lot of their valuation has been based on. But, its success really hinges on them getting a handle on these very immediate, very real operational issues we've been talking about. And of course, everyone's waiting to see how all these dynamics, the good and the bad, play out in their second quarter results. Those are expected in July.
Right. So what does this all mean for you listening in? We've basically just walked through a really dynamic, frankly kind of messy situation. You've got a company juggling frequent production issues, some serious sales dips, a major recall, external political heat, but at the same time, pushing hard on these huge new initiatives like robotaxis. It's quite the balancing act.
It really is. So maybe the crucial question for you to think about is this. What do these repeated interruptions, the production stops, the sales challenges, the big recalls, what do they really tell us about the current health and maybe the future path of a company like Tesla? Especially as they head towards Q2 results and these very ambitious launches they've promised for so long. It's this fascinating tension between the struggles right now and those grand long-term visions, something to mull over.